even if you're the new kid on the block, so to speak, I think that if you can create a competitive advantage for yourself and differentiate yourself, you can find success.
This podcast is a chance for me to sit down with so many great people that I've met over the years and get to know them better. I get to ask them a lot of questions about what they do, both for work, what they do personally, and maybe learn a few life lessons along the way. It's a really fun sort of coffee conversation, and I'm hoping you'll grab a cup of coffee and join me. Welcome to Strange Currencies. This is Sean, and I have Sean Bandawat on the show with me today. He's the CEO of Liquid Ventures, but more importantly, he is the founder of Rupiani's Pizza. It's this super cool deep dish Chicago pizza that can be delivered anywhere in the country, and I can personally attest. He delivered it 750 miles to me to Philadelphia, and it was super tasty. So I'm really excited to learn more about Rupiani's and his story, and excited to have you here, Sean. So thanks, man.
Thank you, Sean. Great name.
Yeah.
Great to be on.
Yeah, that's right. So I read the story on the site about your, kind of celebrating your grandfather, but can you tell me what inspired you to start Rupiani's outside of your grandfather and his love of pizza?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's actually a pretty long journey. So it started out in 2021 as a business called Red Carpet. And so Red Carpet, so Red Carpet was if you trace this journey all the way back to where it started, it's called Red Carpet in 2021, and it was a huge vision at the time, which was to ship frozen food from restaurants in major cities like New York, Chicago, LA, to consumers all across the country. So big vision, grand idea, and it was essentially a 2-year journey with Red Carpet to figure out that there were serious feasibility issues with that business model that just made it impractical for that to work.
Got it.
And so we decided to carve out a niche for ourselves. Throughout those 2 years, we figured out that pizza was like this universally loved niche that, we thought be successful with. And so we carved out just one section of that business, which was just focusing on pizza. And so we went from this big vision of Red Carpet everything to Red Carpet Pizza in 2022, 2023. And we focused on the Chicago and New York pizza markets, and found a lot of success, not so much with New York, but with Chicago. So we did that for about a year, pretty close to it.
So was the idea here at that point that you were delivering your own pizza in Chicago, or you were delivering restaurant pizzas?
Restaurant pizza,
yeah, got it. Okay,
So we were a marketplace at that point.
Yep, got it.
And we were shipping, Giordano's, Limonati's, like Pequod's, all the big players.
Yep.
And we had some success driving revenue, but the profit margins weren't there, and we didn't control, the intellectual property. We didn't control the product, the customer. Like, there were a lot of challenges with being a marketplace, and we learned along the way that, driving revenue and making money are two different things. And so we went back to the drawing board and we said, okay, we figured out that this pizza thing works, but it's not working being a marketplace. And so we created our own brand. And that was 2023, where I partnered up with a few different entrepreneurs in the Phoenix market to basically create our own brand of pizzas. And that proved to be challenging because, first of all, there were too many partners in the business. So splitting $1 4 ways is just too hard. It's hard enough to do it one,
Yeah, for sure.
And then there were just business model challenges being out in Arizona and having the product shipped to Illinois and stuff. So that essentially, we dissolved the partnership. We amicably split ways. And then in 2024, I said, okay, so this has been a 3-year journey. If you take all the lessons learned in the last 3 years, you put them into a blender, you mix it up, what do you get? And I came up with the Rupiani's concept, which was everything I learned going back to Red Carpet, and that's what this is today. So I told people, we had a super successful year in 2024, but it looks like an overnight success, and it was, but it was really a 3-year process to get there. So
there's always this common theme, right, with entrepreneurs, like failure is your best teacher. I tell my kids that all the time, right? So you learn so many lessons along the way from what you thought it was going to be to what it is now. And I'm sure when you started if you started this, I'm sure you had no idea at that point that it's some, down the line, you'd be delivering deep dish Chicago pizza across the country. Like it
No,
just,
no, I
all
did
these
not
things
know.
happen along the way that sort of get you there, which is really cool.
Yep, yep.
Um,
So
were you always an entrepreneur from a young age? I'll give you like a story about myself. I always felt like there was something there. I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. I do remember as a young kid, two things. One, I knew in my family, I was in a family of seven kids, that if I wanted anything for myself, I had to get it because we didn't have any money. So that was sort of like my first sort of thought, that I would, probably be more of an independent spirit and figure that out. So I used to have a paper route. It was always funny. So in the mornings at 6 in the morning, I'd have to get up and I'd have to go get a stack of papers and put the rubber bands on them, and then take them all through the apartment complexes up the street. And then once a month, I used to have to knock on their doors and ask them to pay their, I don't know, $5 a month for getting their papers. So I would knock on doors, I'd get enough money. And then what would happen is I'd wind up going up the street to the local arcade at Marvin's Gardens, and I'd spend all the money. So by the end of the month, I would have to talk to the route master and somehow talk him into letting me wait till the next month to pay for things. So it's just funny how all of those lessons, probably just figuring out how to make things work, were like, it just sort of got me in sort of that spirit of this idea of eventually becoming an entrepreneur. Do you remember anything at a young age that sort of led you to where you are now in terms of this journey?
yeah, similar for me in terms of age. I mean, I was an elementary school kid. I was probably second or third grade. I had a my friend and I did a lemonade stand. The quintessential
Yeah,
childhood lemonade stand. That was my
yeah,
first,
yeah,
and yeah, I'll never forget it. I mean, it was like we probably only sold like I don't know, 5 cups or something, but it was just like a huge like accomplishment at the time. So
yeah.
and it stuck
No, I
with me.
totally get that.
Yeah, ever since. So
I feel like, from there, it just, it sort of plants a bug. You don't know where it's going to land, but you just sort of have this idea in your head that you can kind of do things on your own, which is
yep.
really neat. When you go back to Rupiani's, you talked about the deep dish pizza, right? And so obviously Chicago is known for deep dish pizza. And I know that this is more of something that can be delivered nationally, but what are some of the things that you have to think about, or you view as ways to, I guess, separate yourself from the competitive landscape? Like, how do you think about that? What do you do? Did you think about that in the beginning, or is it just one of those things where you said, like, I'm just going to make the best damn pizza and that's going to sort of solve all my problems?
Well, let me answer that in a. I think I'll answer your question with telling you a story. So
Yeah.
if you go back to 2023, when I was telling you about when I partnered up with 3 other individuals to create our own brand,
Yep. Yep.
I had to be honest. I was pretty pretty uncertain that that would work because we're going up against players that have been in this business for 50 plus years.
Sure. Yeah.
Illuminati's and Giordano's and Pizzeria Uno, and I could go on and on. I mean, these guys are established and they're very well known.
Yep.
And we're a no name. So I was pretty uncertain that it would work, but I wanted to give it a shot, and it did, to my surprise. And so I think that you know even if you're the new kid on the block, so to speak, I think that if you can create a competitive advantage for yourself and differentiate yourself, you can find success. And that's what we've been
Yeah.
able to do. So,
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you think about when thinking about differentiation, right? So, is it the way that you make the pizza? Is it the fact that you can deliver it nationwide? What are some of the things that sort of stand out for you
so,
versus
so
others?
the first thing is, and not to talk badly about competitors, but if you look
Yeah.
at their product, strictly speaking, if you order a Lumalnati's frozen deep dish,
Yeah.
and then you go to Lumalnati's restaurant and actually eat their pizza, it's like two totally different experiences.
Yeah.
It might as well not even be the same thing because
Right.
it really has nothing to do with one another. And
Yeah.
that's the case for all of them. I mean, for the most part, the restaurant pizza and the frozen pizza are not representative,
Yep.
of the quality. And so we wanted to create something that was actually made in Chicago, which our competitors don't. They make it out of state.
Oh,
Um,
that's interesting.
Mass produced kitchens. Yeah. So we're actually handmade in Chicago using Chicago water. It's as
Yeah.
it's as close to the real thing as you're going to get without dining out.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it for sure.
That's cool. Yeah, and it tastes great. I can tell you. Literally, when we got it, we couldn't believe how good it was. So it was really exciting to try. Um, your company, right? So when I started Rotary, and it's just I had tried some other things before and it failed, but when I started this, kind of my first memory of like, oh, this is going to work was I sold my first ad to a company that literally made this balm that you put on your face or head when you cut yourself shaving. And I don't remember the name of it, but basically, you sort of put it on there and it instantly stops the bleeding. And I remember selling that ad cost maybe $500, and I thought, holy cow, like I have a business. It was like that aha moment. Do you have like an aha moment that you think about where you're like, oh yeah, Rupiani's is going to work, or this is really something?
I was pretty skeptical, but when we were able to actually drive revenue um, through the door with a no name brand, that was the aha moment. That was like,
Yeah.
okay, there's gold here, and we just have to
Yep.
figure out how to make it work. So
I was thinking about your pizza, and forgive me, sort of making taking liberties, but it feels like you have this tech advantage, right? You have flash freezing, heat cabinets, this blast chiller, all the things that I read about that seem to be a technological advantage to the creation of your pizza.
yeah,
Can you talk about that experience, how you arrived at that, and like, is that something that needed to be built out before you started, or did it sort of evolve into it? I would love to hear more about that.
yeah. So none of that would have known. I wouldn't have had any of that information had it not been for the red carpet, journey that
Oh
lasted.
wow. Okay. Yeah. 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 That's
Yes.
cool.
So that whole thing, like, figuring out, because I remember at that time we weren't doing pizza, right? We were doing everything.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
at that time it was okay. How do you take, I don't know, I mean, just like a spaghetti and meatballs dish out of Manhattan and ship it to someone in Arkansas?
Yeah.
How do you do that? So at that time it was okay. We have to invest in these flash freezers. We have to come up with all these different ways to preserve and ship the food so that it stays intact during transit, and so we learned a lot on that experience, and all of that information, like the flash freezing, the heating cabinets, um, the dry ice, the way we pick, pack, and ship, like all of that information and knowledge from red carpet translated over to what we're doing today. So yeah, there's definitely a lot there that
Did it?
that
Did
got you.
that knowing and understanding that? Let's just call it technology, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Did that also sort of shape this idea of getting into pizza because you knew what you learned from the restaurants, or
Yeah,
what was it that you were going to do pizza and then you just had to figure out how to ship it?
probably a little bit of both, but
Yeah.
the fact is like all of the logistics involved in like moving food, with something that's inherently perishable and challenging to ship.
Yeah.
All of that information and knowledge from red carpet was super helpful. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Same
yeah,
thing, right? Like
yeah,
you learn all these things along the
yeah,
way, and you never know where it leads. It's really cool.
exactly. Yeah.
Talk about funding in the early stages. Like, how did you fund this to start? It'd be super interesting to learn. Like, what does it take? Like, is this similar to? It sounds like it's more complicated than if you were to try to start a brick and mortar pizza place, right? It's got to be.
I,
It's got to
I
be a
think
lot more to it than
I,
that.
I think I think in some ways it's a much more challenging business than
Yeah.
yeah, than like a local brick and mortar shop. So if you trace the business back to 2021 when we started, and I do because I consider it one long journey.
Yep.
I'm personally invested over like $100,000 into this,
Yep.
um, and all of that is personal money. And it's continues to this day to be bootstrapped. So we have no outside investors,
Wow.
no loans, and
Okay.
I try to run all my businesses like that. So
Yeah, we do the same. We do the same. So
yep,
it's nice to have that flexibility.
yep,
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Wow. Okay, that's really cool.
yep.
All right, let's like switch gears. This is like a unique thing. So like, what's a typical day like for you? What's a typical work day? Like, where do you hang your hat? Do you have certain things you have to do each day, or are you just all over the map because it's such a unique business?
Well, I mean, so the beautiful thing about e-commerce businesses and why I'm drawn to them, and I have several in the portfolio. This being the most recent, but it's the automations that the automation that you can get from owning and operating e-commerce companies. So at this point, Rupiani's is actually fairly automated. I mean, I probably spend 1 to 2 hours a day uh,
Okay.
on it. And that mainly consists of just kind of making sure that the systems are working as they should, right? The inventory levels are correct. The marketing is working as it should. Orders are being fulfilled as they should. But I'm not actually doing a whole lot at this point. And so it's pretty nice.
Yeah, yeah, that's really nice, right?
Yeah.
I guess it frees you up then. Like you said, if you have your hand in other ventures too, it allows you to have that flexibility to work on those.
Yep. I mean,
Uh,
I essentially I'm just making sure that the train is on the tracks and
yeah,
it's running as it should.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So that's kind of dovetails nicely into like how you sort of think about whatever it is you need to accomplish each day. So are you a habit guy? Like I can give you an example. I'm a habit guy. When I started this business, I read this great article from James Clear about a guy who got into venture capital and he wanted to sort of start making his way into winning customers. And he had this thing called it was called the basically called the paperclip method. And what it was he would put 25 paper clips in one jar and he would make an outreach call, and he'd put the paperclip in the next jar and he'd fill it up to 25. And then he knew that he did enough work that day to move the needle. And so I have actually incorporated that same thing. I have a clicker, which is the same idea where every day I try to make sure that I literally ask clients for money 20 times a day, right? In some capacity, right? But then I know after that I've done enough where I can concentrate on other things, but I'm moving the ball forward. Do you have habits like that or things that you do each day to sort of help either organize or move
yeah,
yourself forward?
I might have to steal that. That's a good one. That's a
Yeah, it's
really
a really good one. Yeah, yeah. Because I found for myself as a seller, you could sell all day long, especially
right.
now, right? It's just email. And I always felt like, well, I got to figure out a way to just sort of like put some rails on this so I know I've done enough each day and I can work on other things, or I can actually go do something of my own, like paint or whatever. And I'll send you the article when we're done. It's a great article. I've literally,
Yeah,
I bought a $6 clicker and it's been like this sort of key thing that I've done every single day.
that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a natural, like, I think that there's like three main like pillars: sales, finance, and ops. I'm like a natural sales guy. That's like my,
Yep.
so, so yeah, I'm heavily involved in the sales and marketing side of things, which I think
Okay.
is the most important thing if you're an entrepreneur.
Me too. Me too.
The finance and ops kind of fall into place, but without sales, you're dead. So,
Yeah, there's no business. That's right.
yep.
We
So,
both agree to that for sure.
yep. So
Yeah.
that's my thing. I mean, to kind of answer your question, I mean, habits that I have, I set my agenda for the next day the evening prior.
Okay.
So I'm not wasting any time in the morning. I'm just executing what I already know is on the list from the day, the night before,
Yep.
and
That's
that's
smart.
been super helpful to me. So I'm spending the first, quarter or half of my day just executing the list,
Yeah.
and I'm not wasting time during the most precious hours of the day trying to figure out what to do.
Yep. Yep. That makes sense. What do
So
you find? What do you find are your like peak hours of work? This is an interesting thing. I remember Jeff Bezos talking about the idea that like he was really sharp from like 9 till 2 in the afternoon, and after that he's kind of a waste. I
yeah,
kind of feel like
I
I
kind
feel
of
like
feel
I'm the
that
same.
too. Yep.
Yeah.
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 Same.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
like
I think
really
after
good.
I think after lunch it kind of slows down. Uh,
Yeah, isn't it true? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could get like a little burst, but for the most part, like if you want to get anything meaningful done with me, I mean, this is fun, but like if this was like
right, right.
if I had to do some real work after 3, 4 o'clock, it gets pretty tough. So it's
Yeah,
funny.
no, for sure.
I always admire Jeff for that. How about other? Do you have any other habits that you have that just to keep you kind of physically or mentally sharp? Do you
Yeah,
read? Do you exercise? Or what do you do?
I exercise. I try to exercise at least 3 days a week.
Nice.
I have to say I'm kind of slacking in that right now. I just had a newborn, our second child, so
Oh wow.
yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. Yep, that'll take time away for
but
sure.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it's great. But I'm
Good for
a
you.
little off my schedule. But under normal circumstances, yeah, I think at least 3 times a week, and I think I think staying sharp physically helps you stay sharp mentally. So
Yep.
um,
Yeah,
uh,
no, that
yeah,
makes sense. Sure. Um, let's go back to the business. You talked about this a little bit, but we talked about the idea that failure is your greatest lesson, and obviously you've had I don't want to call them failures, but you've had a lot of lessons along the way.
oh
Is
yeah.
there anything specifically that you could point out as a failure where you would say, that happened, and as a result, it got me here? Um, or do you
I,
just think of is everything just sort of a
I could
lesson?
write a whole book on them. I mean, I could.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I've
which
got
is great.
way more failures than successes, and I wish it were the other way around, but I think that that's just the reality. I think failure and success are two sides of the same coin. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I really do. So
Yeah, I do too.
you can't succeed without failing. So
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think like failures. I always say failures like your greatest teacher.
yeah,
If I look back on my career, I can, I can more quickly point out where I failed. I've been fired so many times, but like every time that's happened, that has sort of propelled me to where I'm at now. So without those things happening, I don't think I'd be where I'm at today. So I absolutely agree with you. Failures are a big thing, and it's definitely important. Do you have any kind of podcasts or books or any other things that you sort of like or listen to? Favorite things that sort of
yes,
shape who
yes.
you are? Yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
I'm a huge follower of the Unofficial Shopify podcast.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but
No, but I'll check it out.
Kurt Elster is the host and the founder of it, and it's fantastic. I think if you're an e-commerce entrepreneur, you should be on Shopify. If you're not, I would highly question why you're not.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I
Sure.
think that
Sure.
you need to, yeah. And if you're an e-commerce entrepreneur, you need to listen to the podcast. So it's been super helpful.
Yeah, that's great. I got it. Anything else that you sort of like, even personally? Doesn't have to be
Um,
related to business.
yeah, I mean, I'm just like I don't have a whole lot of time for like fiction and stuff like that, but I'm a self-help book kind of guy. I like,
Yep.
I have a whole library of books, but
We've
one of
probably read
my
a lot of the same books.
yeah, I'm sure we have. I mean, Robert Kiyosaki he's a huge inspiration to me, and a big I'm a huge fan of his work.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people can. He's a controversial guy, and say what you will about him, but I think that the lessons in his book, specifically about creating wealth and uh, and stuff like that, I think are timeless. So it's been super helpful to me for sure.
That's great. Very cool. Yeah, and obviously you have your hands busy. If you got two kids, how old's your first kid?
He's
Go.
two.
Two. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. So
two
you're like,
boys. Yeah.
yeah,
So
I remember those days. Those days happened to me 22 years ago, but I remember having two kids that were 2 years apart and at the same
yes,
age. So yeah, you are busy for sure. It's so different now. We could do a whole other podcast on what it must be like to raise kids now with technology and everything all around you, and whether you try to use it or you try to shield them from it, it's just got to be unbelievable. It's got to be really challenging. I mean, when I was a kid, when I was my kids when they were your age's kids, right?
yeah,
There was no internet, right? It was like you put on we would put on music at night if they woke up in the middle of the night, or when you're walking with them. You tried other things or a toy or whatever it is now, and you see so many people now using technology to actually help them with that. I'm not sure sort of where I stand on that, but it's so ubiquitous. You have to sort of consider it for sure. It's just so different.
yeah.
I got
It's
it.
crazy you say that. So you have two kids, you said, or
I have three. Yeah, mine are 26, 24, and 22. I'm a little ahead of you.
okay, yeah, got it, got
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
But they're all
yeah,
close in age, so.
yeah. They are. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, I was just talking to my wife about that, and so we're born in the late '80s, and like even when we were born, I mean, the world is a totally different place. I mean, there's no internet,
Yeah.
there's no email, there's no. I mean, just
No.
you go on and on. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just changed dramatically. So
Yeah. How do you handle that now, though? So you have a 2 year old. Has the 2 year old been exposed? It's not like you sit him down. When I say exposed, right, I would sit our kids down in front of the television to watch Sesame Street, right? Like that was a good thing. Do you find that is that the version of it today? Do you sit them in front of a screen to sort of educate them in the same way that we sat kids in front of a television? Like, how do you think about that with your 2 year old?
yeah, I mean, I think back to when I was like, I have flashbacks, right, of when I was little and watching TV, and I mean, more or less, it's just the same thing, but just in a more technologically advanced
Yeah.
way. I mean, we're just
Yeah.
streaming instead of popping a VHS in and
Yeah. That's right.
stuff like that. But
Yep.
it's and we try to limit the TV time. So we're big on that.
Go. That's good.
So
Yeah.
we're
That's
not
very
like
good.
he's not just watching it all day, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, same. No, I got it. Yeah. Well, it'll be fun. Good luck. I mean, it's the best time of your life. So just enjoy it as much as you can, because you're going to turn around and your kids are going to be in college. I guarantee it. It goes that fast.
that's
People tell
scary.
you that all the time, right?
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Um, I always say, speaking of like lessons for my kids, I always used to sell my kids how important feedback was, and in essence mentorship. And one of the things I always told my kids were, as they were coming through to start out in their careers, was to sit down with 5 or 10 people in my network or outside of it, and just have a cup of coffee and learn what they do and get comfortable with sitting across from someone that's your elder and learning about what their business and learning the lessons that they did and how they sort of got through. And those wind up being pretty important relationships for some of my kids that they still have today. My middle child, Abigail, still has really strong relationships with some of my colleagues, and it's pretty amazing. Like, they still have monthly calls. Do you find when you were coming up that was important to you? Did you seek a lot of feedback through this process, like sort of outside of your normal kind of community,
Yeah,
has that helped you build
yeah.
relationships? Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that. So I have an advisory board, and I've had one since I started, my first business in 2010.
Yep.
And the board's evolved. I've had people come and go. I've had one individual stay on since 2010. He's a great friend of mine.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I think seeking feedback and advice, and I'm actually just is huge. And I'm actually always just in general asking people for constructive criticism.
Yeah, that's smart.
I seek it out. I want to hear it because it's the only way to improve.
Yeah.
So I don't get offended by it as long as it's constructive. As long as it's actually constructive and not destructive. So
Yeah, I wonder if that's a sales thing, because I do the same thing. I think salespeople are more comfortable, like, hey, tell me what I'm doing right, tell me what I'm doing wrong. You know what I mean? Because we're so used to, balancing success and failure, and it's always more failure than success. So any kind of
yeah.
feedback you can get to improve your chances, I totally hear you on that. But that's really good to know. It's something that I continue to really just drive home with my kids, which is great.
We have to have thick skin. Right? I mean, we just have to.
Yeah, yeah, you totally do. It's different now, though, right? It's different that it's different. The interactions in sales today are so much more digital than face to face, and the sales process is so different. It's one thing for me to sweat in front of you and pitch you on our wares in person. It's another thing to do it over email, and it's a hard thing to sort of drive home. I just spent 2 days in Austin, Texas last week with some key clients of mine who've been partners for a long time, who sadly I hadn't met. And you could just tell, like, the relationships you build with people when you have face-to-face interaction with them are so much bigger and deeper and better. And not that I should get off my horse here, but I think it's a challenge for people today. I think people think you can succeed now strictly behind a screen, and I don't necessarily think that's true. But I just got off on a wicked tangent, so but it's fine. Last question. So let's leave it with Rupiani. It's like, where do you see it in 5 years? Do you have a plan, or you just sort of try to build it and see where it goes?
Oh no, I have a plan. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is like my fifth successful venture, and so if you asked me 15 years ago, I wouldn't have had a plan. But today, I very much have a plan. So
It's great.
yeah. So I think it's been a 3-year process to get to this point. We're overnight success story, 3 years in the making. I like to tell people that. Next year, I think we're going to be able to quite easily double the order volume.
That's
and,
awesome.
I should, the goal is for the next 2 to 3 years is continuing to just double your year-over-year growth. So
That's great.
and that's just a function of two things. It's how much inventory can we produce and keep on hand, and how much money can we throw at marketing, and what's our CAC,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as
Right.
long as we can continue acquiring customers at a low cost, I think sky's the limit. So it's pretty
Same
exciting.
with us. Same with us. All about trying to acquire customers at a low cost, right? Subscribers for us and customers
Yep.
for you. I totally get that. Well, hey, this was great. We got through all the questions. It was awesome. Obviously, so happy that we could be a partner of yours during the holidays. That was really fun. You were the first of its kind for us as a brand, and we're so happy we had a lot of success for you. And
Oh, we're
obviously
coming.
looking forward
We're coming
to
back.
working with you.
We got-
Yeah. That's great.
We've got more coming your way. So
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're looking forward to that, and super excited. I'm looking forward to getting another pizza soon, and totally appreciate you, Sean, getting on the call today. Good luck with fatherhood and the business, and really great for us to connect. And obviously, would love to keep a dialogue moving forward. And I'll definitely send you that paperclip method article from James Clear.
please. Thank
Yeah.
you, Sean.
Okay. Yeah, you bet. It was great talking to you. Hey, thanks for watching the show. Special shout out to Elijah who helped me put it together. I hope you liked it. If you have any comments or questions, I'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment in the section below, or you can reach out to me directly. And I hope you'll make it to the next one.